So hello and welcome to this first live call of season 10 of the Mundane to Magical online summit. My name is Louise Matson, and as always, I am truly blessed to be your host. As you can probably tell by my voice, I have a head cold, but I hope this will not impede my ability to host this season's live calls too much. My clearing symptoms started bang on the eclipse, and so it seems perfect timing that I introduced our first speaker with his topic, which is eclipse season. I'm really excited to welcome back a very much loved and featured speaker on the Mundane to Magical Summit, Peter Tong. Peter is a master teacher and thought leader who weaves astrology and the gene keys together to unlock the energetic bigger picture for us on a collective and individual level. And I personally consider Peter to be a master wisdom keeper for the gene keys modality, with the amazing gift of being able to ground and share this high esoteric wisdom of the gene keys into the physical as easy to understand information to assist us all on our journeys of spiritual evolution. Now, as I mentioned before, the title of our conversation today is Eclipse Season, and Peter will be sharing insights into the extremely powerful series of energetic waves that we've all been experiencing since the fall equinox, and how they are influencing us now and in the future, including the transits of Pluto and Venus and how they're affecting us at this time. Peter will, as usual, be taking live questions around the gene keys or anything that we discuss in the show. So if you would like your questions answered, please use the chat box or the Q&A box available if you're on the Zoom. And hopefully you will already have a copy of your gene key profile in front of you, but if, however, you do not, you can always access it at https://gene keys, that's GENE, keys, keys.com/free-profile/. And so without further ado, let's get into it. I wish you a very warm welcome back, Peter. It is a true blessing to have you on the show again.
Well, thanks, Louise. I'm really happy to be here. And let's work on clearing your cold out during the session.
Yeah, absolutely. Any help is gratefully received.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we are in incredibly powerful times, and I know we say that each time that we come on the show, but there really are some extreme energies at this time, because we're being sandwiched. This summit is being sandwiched by two eclipses as well. So I am going to hand it over to you, Peter, to save my voice.
Okay. Well, we are right. We are right in it. There's no doubt about that. Having just had the solar eclipse on Saturday, then we've got a 2-week period through to the lunar eclipse on October 28th. But I do want to go back, as you said, to the equinox energy. And actually, I'm going to quote, if that's okay, an interview I watched between Pam Gregory, who's a very gifted English astrologer, and Magenta Pixie, who is a channel of what she calls the Channel of Nine. And what I'm finding, Lou, in my work now, the synchronicities have just become remarkable. And some of them are really silly, but they're still synchronistic. So I really encourage everybody to pay attention to any form of synchronicity at whatever level, and really acknowledge them, because the more that you do, the more they come in. So the reason I want to talk about this in this particular interview, Magenta Pixie, and again, timing was just divine, because I watched this interview on the weekend of the 16th and 17th of September, and she said that this energy was going to kick in on Monday the 18th. So I was just in time. And then what she was talking about was this energy coming in beginning on September the 18th, where there were going to be these pulses, these waves of energy coming in on these significant dates. And what these dates were the equinox, the super full moon on the 29th of September, the solar eclipse last Saturday, and the lunar eclipse coming up in a couple of weeks' time. So these are like these pulses of energy coming in, but what they were doing was opening up these portal gateways into what I would call the mythic realm. So she was talking about the return to the elementals, the fairies, the elves, the pixies, the dragons, the unicorns, Lemuria, all of these times when we were really tuned in intuitively to what we were really aware of in those times. And so these were like gateways or doorways opening where we could choose where we wanted to go into the new mythic realms, because they're coming into our frequency band. So for those, and I'm sure most of your listeners are people who are connected to those realms. So we're now being given this opportunity to step back into those realms and become part of a mythical journey in the immediate future. And then, so this was I thought, wow, this is really, really great news and exciting news. And then later on in the interview, she talked about the two hemispheres of the brain, and she talked about the tendrils. And the tendrils are like the threads that weave the energies together into the synapses when we fire off in the brain structures. What she was saying was that the masculine hemisphere of the brain has linear tendrils. So this is our logical sequential connection to what we would consider to be our standard time frame. So in logical time, in logical sequence. And then she said that the female brain had these Tesla coil tendrils. And then she asked the group of 9, why are they called Tesla coils? And they said, well, there is no language in your language to describe these coils. So this is the closest we can get. But it's like a spiraling coil of tendril. And this is what takes us out of time and into that intuitive space. But then she said, but we need both in balance. So we need to be stepping out of time and stepping back into time, and stepping out of time and back into time, out of logic and back into logic, into intuitive hitting, coming back into logic. So it's not about the one taking over from the other. It's finding this balance. Now, the other thing that is being suggested by a number of different people is that we are now moving deeper into our connection to the galactic core. And so these energies coming down and in are triggering our psychic ability, again, in the brain structures. So we are going to become more intuitive and more psychic. And most people won't realize that. They will just carry on in their world. So it's only those people who get it and who know it who will actually have an unfair advantage, because we will be able to use that intuitive psychic gift to manifest whatever it is that we desire. So there's this wonderful opportunity that we're being given through these horrendous times on the planet to transcend it all and bring in this mythic realm and bring it back into form for us to dance with, because this is the entry point to the new earth, the fifth dimensional frequencies. And so the closer we can connect to that, the easier our lives get. And then these wonderful synchronicities take place. So I just want to mention, because it's totally relevant to everybody, that on the fall equinox, we begin a series of 4 gene keys called the Ring of Matter. And these 4 gene keys describe our childhood development. And they fill this space between the equinox right up to the day before this solar eclipse. I've just been blown away, Louise, by how this is being choreographed by the planets and the stars. The whole thing is just an incredible journey. I mean, it should make a great musical because it's just this wonderful choreographed journey. And so this Ring of Matter finished the day before the solar eclipse. So I'll just talk about the Ring of Matter because it's relevant to everybody and our childhood development. So here was a 3-week period where we had the opportunity to really look deeply into our childhood and any issues that arose that we still needed to clear.
Right.
So the first one is the 46, which is the period from the moment that we are born to the age of 7.
Okay.
And that gene key is saying to us, did you feel totally safe when you entered this world? And for those people who are awake and aware, the answer is usually no, because we volunteered for this contract when we were spirit. Oh, I can go and do that. And then we get squashed into this little creature that then gets birthed through that birth canal. I think, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah.
And then whatever happens next in those first 7 years with your parenting, then you want to check out cases. And some people do. They think, well, I can't go through with this.
Yeah.
So a lot of the awake people today, the light workers, had a difficult time in those first years because they weren't sure they wanted to do this.
Yeah.
Now they're still here, so they've survived. So they've come through that. But we need to make sure there's nothing residual holding us back. So the big question becomes, do I feel safe in the world today? Well, with all the stuff that's going on in the world, that can threaten that safety and security.
Yeah.
And so this is where we need to really attend to our inner world. And do I feel safe within my own heart? Do I feel safe in my own body? And if you do, then you start living this life of delight and ecstasy, which are the higher aspects of the 46 gene key. Then we step into the 48th gene key, which is the period of age 8 to 14. So we've survived the first 7 years. Now our emotional body is developing. And now we're sort of moving away from our nuclear family and connecting more with our friends. So now our peer group become more important. And do I fit in? Then we're going through puberty. So we're having all these physical changes inside ourselves. And the question becomes, can I cope with what's coming next? And I don't know what it is. The shadow is inadequacy. So we can go through this period in that age 8 to 14 where we're very uncertain. And I've noticed that when I've had sessions with people with the 8 to 14 age group, one of the key areas is moving home. So here you are, a little person who's got established, you've got your peer group, you're in your school, you know the routine, and then suddenly you move to a different location, different people. Sometimes it's from a country to the city or from the city to the country. You don't know anybody, and it really rattles your cage. And that emotionally has a big impact, and that can emotionally arrest us at that age. So that now in our adult life, if something comes up, we don't know how to handle it, that inadequacy can get triggered. Now, the answer to it all is we've survived through our lives to now. So we've actually gathered a great deal of resources to navigate our way through our lives. So now we say, okay, I'm totally competent. I can do this and I can navigate through it. So there's this trust in your own inner ability and trusting in the universal life force flow. Then you come into your teenage years, your IQ, you're now 15 to 21. And this is now the 18th gene key, where you are supposed to become the rebel. You are supposed to be someone who takes on your parents. And the reason is for you to establish what your own values are rather than what your family values are. So again, what happens now is, how do our parents respond to us in becoming the rebel? If you don't become the rebel, then you're going to have to do it later. So sometimes you get shut down by the parents. Or others will help you navigate through that tricky time in your life. Now, what's really interesting about this, Lou, is that when we had that super full moon, we were actually in the 18th gene key. So the sun was in the 18 and the moon was in its programming partner, the 17, the shadows of which are judgment and opinion. And these are the two gene keys that get us trapped in our mind. And what I've realized over the last few years in doing this work is most of us have great difficulty getting underneath the mind because we've been trained to make the mind the main operative in our lives through our school system.
Yeah.
Our school system denies our intuitive self and focuses entirely on that magical, sorry, not magical, that mental, logical
Yeah.
approach.
Yeah.
So what was really interesting then is when that 17 and 18 were right on the super full moon at the end of September, basically it was saying to us, here is this golden opportunity to let go of the mind. To let go of the mind, you've got to let go of your old identity.
Yeah.
And that can be a bit scary,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But just to complete the ring of matter, the final one is actually the first one. The 57th gene key is the time we spend in our mother's womb, from the moment of conception to the moment of birth. And what happens then is you pick up all of her fear vibrations when you're in her womb. So whatever your mom was going through when she was pregnant with you, you're picking that up. And it's been really interesting for me in this last couple of weeks when the 57 was being illuminated by the sun, was all of these sessions with women where there was a matriarchal lineage issue. So if you think that, you know, you were in your mother's womb, your kids were in your womb, your mother was in your grandmother's womb, and so on and so on and so on. So there is this healing of the maternal lineage womb space that can be achieved through that 57th gene key.
Yeah.
So it's a wonderful gift for realization of how we can heal the not only the feminine womb, but the feminine lineage. And that's what needs to happen right now, because the feminine has been damaged over at least the last 2000 years, probably even longer, through the age of Pisces, where it was supposed to be Mary Magdalene and Jesus Christ walking the earth to anchor in sacred union through Christ consciousness. And the priesthood were not prepared to relinquish authority,
Yeah.
so they turned her into a whore and have suppressed the feminine ever since. So she has been deliberately broken.
Yeah.
So now she's coming back. And so this is a really wonderful thing for us to engage in and witness and see her return. And this is why I believe now this intuitive energy can now return, because she's returning.
Yeah.
Which actually leads me, I'm sort of going out of sequence a little bit, but this would be a good time to talk about Venus.
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
what happened with Venus this summer was really, really important. And what happened was, this was back in August, and Venus turned retrograde right at the end of Leo, 28 degrees Leo. So she started moving backwards.
Yeah.
And when she's moving backwards, Venus is reviewing everything. And she stands for our values, our relationships, and our money. And then during that time, she came into what's called an inferior conjunction with the sun, which means that she passed between the earth and the sun. And so she went from being this beautiful, bright evening star. She disappeared for a couple of weeks because she was now in the radiance of the sun. And then she re-emerged in the morning as a morning star. So now she's in the morning just before sunrise. You've seen her recently.
Yeah, I did
So
just
she's
before
now
the
coming
eclipse.
up just before the sun in the early morning, right?
Yeah.
So what this means is that Venus has this wonderful journey with the sun and the earth, where over an 8-year period, she defines a perfect 5-pointed star. So she starts off in conjunction in Leo with the sun. Then she goes through 5 different conjunctions in 8 years, and then she comes back to Leo. So she creates a perfect 5-pointed star, which is the feminine. And it's an 8-year period. So what she was asking us to do in August, and we can still do it now, I'll tell you why in a moment. She was asking us to review what's happened in this last 8-year period with respect to our money, our relationships, and our values. To take a deep look inside ourselves, because on this solar eclipse, she's now returned to where she was when she went retrograde. And so now she's saying it's time for us to set intention for the next 8 years.
Right.
Now, we have no idea what this 8 years is going to look like. What we do know is what we ourselves want to experience,
Yes.
what we want to feel like during this time.
Mm.
No, so when we say let's have no restrictions, no limitations, let's
Mm.
throw the doors wide open, let's connect to that mythic realm. How
Yeah.
am I going to feel when I'm living my life in that?
Yeah.
And that's what we need to focus on right now.
Mm.
Now, she did all of this. She turned in the 29th Jinky when she went backwards. And then she came back and she's just cleared the 29 now. And the 29 is all about completions of cycles.
Mm.
So have I spent too long in a cycle and got burnt out, overcommitted?
Yeah.
Or did I leave too early and had to repeat it all over again in another cycle, often in relationships? That's half-heartedness.
Mm.
And how do I find the balanced commitment that I need? Because the city is devotion. It's the devotion to my true spiritual path.
Mm.
And that itself requires a balanced commitment.
Yeah.
So this ring of matter cleared all the way from the equinox to the day before the eclipse. So then what was the eclipse gene key just on Saturday? It was the 32.1. So
Right.
it's the first line of the 32nd gene key, the gift of which is preservation. So amazingly, having gone through this ring of matter and considered our childhood, considered the last 8 years, now we were being asked to, okay, now let's look at who we really are. Let's cut back to the true vine of who we are. Let's get rid of all the superfluous, superficial stuff that doesn't matter. And let's really focus on my core, who I really am, what I'm really here to be.
Yeah.
And Richard in the book talks about the art of grafting.
Right.
So you cut back to the true vine. It's like pruning your roses all the way back.
Yeah.
So they bloom beautifully the next summer. So now you graft onto that stock center, all the pieces you really want to engage in the future.
Mm.
So this has been just a wonderful opportunity, and it's not over because we've got this eclipse now right up till the 28th.
Yeah.
So we can do this work continuing through this time of getting real clarity of who I truly am.
Mm-hmm.
So I may as well now, as I'm onto the transits, about the Pluto transit,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
that is
Powerful.
huge, absolutely huge. So let me take everybody back to January the 21st this year. On that day, there was a new moon, sun and moon together at 0 degrees Aquarius. So this was an entry point to the age of Aquarius.
Yeah.
And Pluto was stationed at the last few degrees of Capricorn. So it's what's called an out of sign conjunction. So Pluto was conjunct the new moon, but in a different sign.
Mm.
And then the sun and moon move on, and Pluto is very slow moving. So it edged its way, crossed that cusp into Aquarius.
Mm.
Then it stopped and it went back again. And it went back over that cusp, back into Capricorn.
Mm.
So it's just gone direct this last week.
Yeah.
And it's at 29 degrees Capricorn. So it's back in Capricorn. And then it's going to cross over back into Aquarius. And then in 2024, it's going to turn and go back again. So it's crossing that Capricorn Aquarius cusp 5 times before it finally leaves in November 2024. And it won't be back in Capricorn for another 250 years. So basically what it's saying is I've got this job to transform Pluto, Capricorn, the old structures,
Mm-hmm.
the old patriarchy, the old hierarchy. And it's not an easy job because they've been dominant for a long time.
Yeah.
So this Pluto going back and forth is like eking out all the stuff that needs to be cleared.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're going through right now. And that's why there's so much
Mm-hmm.
chaos on the planet, because it's all got to be revealed.
Absolutely. And you really can see it playing out. It you know, you see it playing out in the heavens, in the planets, but you really see it playing out down here as well. I mean, I was just thinking, it's been bouncing over. I mean, my moon is at 29 Capricorn, so it's been bouncing over that
Oh,
where I've got
really?
so
Oh,
many
wow.
planets Yeah, I've got so many planets at 27 to 29 degrees. It's crazy that how many it's transiting. But you really can
So
see
it's
that
all,
transformational,
yeah,
massive change, upheaval, destruction of that which has been for what's coming in, happening everywhere you look, whether it's locally or globally. It's obvious.
that's right. Yeah, and with people as well.
Yeah.
So this is this journey that you're on. So this is like a completion for you. If you've got lots of things at 27, 29, it's like it's completing everything for you to set you completely free.
Yeah.
So why this is also important is this is all happening in the 60th gene key.
Right.
So the 60th gene key is the gene key that overlaps the end of Capricorn and goes into early Aquarius. So it covers that sort of that period that you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the 60th shadow, not surprisingly, is limitation.
Mm.
And these are all the limitations placed upon us by external authority.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah.
we've all suffered from that in the last 3.5 years, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so then the gift is realism.
Mm.
So that's saying, what is your or my reality?
Mm.
How am I going to navigate through this restriction?
Yeah.
Is it going to be me doing as I'm told, towing the party line?
Mm.
Is it me going to be the outrageous rebel, fighting and all that stuff? Or am I going to be the clever rebel who navigates my way through
Mm.
to the other side?
Mm.
And hopefully, most of our people have been navigating through. It's not a time to stick your head above the trenches because it gets blown off. It isn't that. Some people are happy to do that, and that's their choice. The
Yeah.
protesters will do that. But that's not our job. Our job is to hold to that highest frequency, but also not agreeing to things that we don't agree with. So we've got to
And
be prepared to say no at a
I think,
certain
like you've
level.
said before, a lot of people who are on this path, that's been our lives. We've
Yes,
not agreed with
exactly.
a lot of the vibrational experiences, circumstances, situations that we've lived through, and yet we've kind of kept our head down in one way, shape, or form, because that's why we're still here. So it's nothing
Exactly.
to be, ashamed of, or don't feel guilty that you didn't stand up and stand in your truth in your early teens, 20s, or whatever. It's like you're here now, and
Yeah.
so you do what
And
you
we've
have
got
to do.
exactly. And we've got an important job to do,
Yes.
which is to hold to this highest frequency.
Yes.
Now, the city of the 60th Jinki is justice.
Yeah.
So justice is going to be served. So I know a lot of people who are on this journey are feeling somewhat exhausted.
Mm.
When is this going to end? When are we going to step into that higher frequency? When is the fifth dimension coming? Well, it's already here.
Mm.
So we want to spend our time playing with it and not being too concerned about what's happening in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Now, we do want to have a compassion for the innocent people who are suffering, but that's all. What we don't want to do is to take sides.
Yeah.
Because we don't know what's really behind all of this. There's a hidden agenda going on here. So we don't want to go one way or the other. We want to go down the middle,
Mm.
transcending into the higher
Mm.
possible frequency. And that's our role in this situation, knowing that justice will be served and it will be playing itself out.
Mm.
So what we're seeing is this self-destruction taking place, where the global elites are actually destroying themselves without realizing it, but they will. So we just leave them to their game and we focus on where we are going next on
Yeah.
this journey.
Yeah.
So that takes me back into that super full moon weekend, because Zia, who I work closely with, and I went all the way across Canada to the other side of the country to Nova Scotia,
Oh, wow.
where we did a weekend retreat. And this was a retreat that's never been done before. And I always follow Richard's lead in everything that he does as one of his ambassadors.
Yeah.
And so, because he's never done anything on this, I contacted him to get permission.
Right.
And fortunately, he gave me permission. And the reason we felt we needed to do that was because we were going to work with what's called the ring of Gaia.
Okay.
And this is one of the codon rings. Now, all the gene keys belong to codon rings. They're like groups of gene keys where there's a common connection. And Richard has talked about doing workshops on the codon rings, but he hasn't got around to that yet. He's got all these other things going on. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to combine together the ring of Gaia with the dream arc.
Okay.
And I'll come to the dream arc in a minute. Because what we really felt very strongly was we, the people who get it, need to embed ourselves as deeply as possible with Mother Earth. Mm. And the ring of Gaia is all about Mother Earth. Mm. And so that was our intention, and then to bring the dream arc into that. And I'll explain about the dream arc in a minute. So the ring of Gaia, there are 3 gene keys, the 19, the 60, and the 61. Okay. Well, I've just talked about the 60th gene key, and this need for us to connect beyond the limitations. Now, in Richard's book, in the 60th gene key, he really goes out into woo-woo land, because at the end of the 60th gene key, he talks about there are no limitations, including our physical laws. So he's talking about transcending gravity, talking about transcending time and space, which is what this is leading to, because he talks in the 60th gene key of the Earth ship Merkaba, that the Earth itself is becoming a star, and we are becoming our own stars as we walk the belly of that Earth ship Merkaba. So that's where this is going. It's going to unprecedented levels that we've never experienced before while walking the Earth. And that's the 60th gene key saying it's really important for us to be really deeply connected with her.
Absolutely.
And so let's talk about that a little bit, because we've talked about the Schumann resonance before, which is the natural heartbeat of Mother Earth. And it was 7.8 hertz. It was a fixed constant. Again, the belief in limitation. And then suddenly Mother Earth wakes up and she starts going to these higher frequencies. And a couple of weeks ago, it was up over 100. It was like unprecedented. It was like really, really raising the frequency. So let me explain this, because it's really important for people to understand. We are getting bombarded with cosmic rays coming down and in right now from beyond. So when they come in and they come through the sun as solar ejections, and they hit us, and they come down and in, and they're not from Earth. So they can be discombobulating. They can create agitation inside us. And we feel all this, well, what's this? And then they go all the way down and they go through us and they go right down to the center of the Earth. And then they get recalibrated with the Earth. So now what was a cosmic energy is now integrated with the Earth energy. And then it comes back up. And then we feel absolutely wonderful, because now it's a balanced energy. So again, if any of our listeners feel that agitation, that discombobulation, in a few days, they're going to feel magnificent. So we've just got to let it flow through us and stay grounded, because this is part of the shift that's happening. So that's the 60th gene key. The 19th gene key is this wonderful gift of synesthesia. And this is where people's senses cross over each other. So people have experiences where their senses are not what they normally are. So people taste color. They have all, I had a woman the other day telling me she could smell pregnancy. Well, how do you smell pregnancy? How do you link those together? But she just knew that. So this is where it gets really, really expanded in our sensory awareness. And it's the position of the whisperers. So it's the animal whisperer, the plant whisperer, the person whisperer. It's the person that has this knowing beyond the norm of the needs of the other. And there are some wonderful whisperers with animals that just have this incredible ability to connect and understand what the creature's issue is and how it needs to be healed and helped through that process. So this is showing us the connection with Mother Earth through the extended aspects of the Earth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then the 61 is the shadow of psychosis. So this gene key is about the mass formation psychosis that we are seeing happening on the planet today.
Yeah.
And there was a wonderful Belgian psychologist, I can't remember his name, who put this out earlier in the year when he was talking about the way we've been mind controlled since television came into our houses.
Yeah.
And how we've now been led to believe this false narrative by circumstances that were deliberately set up. Thank you, Matthias Desmond. Thank you, Maria. That is the man I'm talking about. And how those people have been inculcated into this false narrative and are stuck in believing in it.
Yeah.
But people who have the 61st gene key are often people like us who have known the truth all along, right from day one, but were convinced by others that they were wrong. And that can even take them into a mental disorder.
Yeah.
Because they think they're wrong, but actually they're right. And I say that when I see someone with a 61st, I said, it's time for you to relax your mind and realize that you've known the truth all along.
Yeah.
And you're one of the lucky ones, although the world has told you you're not. And so this is another neat aspect of who we are.
Television. Yeah, well, that's what they call it. Programs, TV programs.
Yeah. Okay. So this is really, really important now for us to trust our inner intuition, our inner knowing, to follow this.
Yes.
So that was the 3 gene keys, and it was the weekend of that super full moon with the 17 and 18. So one of our jobs was to get everybody out of their mind.
Right.
So we took them out into a beautiful place in the landscape where there was a bend in a river and a grove of hemlock trees, where one of the people involved, our host actually, had got married the week before in a forest wedding.
Oh, lovely.
So as we entered this space, I could just feel this palpable peace. So we sent everybody on their own individual journey in the forest for 2 hours to get underneath their mind and just be present with Mother Earth in their body. And that's what we all need to do. We all need to get out of the city, out into the country or out into the garden and spend time going into a quiet inner contemplation and connecting deep within. Because that's when the feminine intuition can flow through, when we are still and deeply listening to her.
Yes.
And it worked really, really well. Great group of people and just really dedicated to this new earth energy that we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
But then we brought in the dream arc, and the dream arc is the latest transmission in the gene keys. And Richard has just begun an online retreat around the dream arc, which is lasting 3 months between the equinox and the solstice. And the dream arc is where each gene key has associated with it 3 creatures: a creepy crawly in the shadow, a mammal in the gift, and a bird in the city. And what you ultimately do is you create this web of life with 12 creatures around you and you in the center. And ultimately you create this creature that becomes you. It becomes your kin. It becomes the shamanic piece of you that you now walk with for the rest of your life. Well, I'm in the dream arc, but I'm not doing it dream arc. I'm doing it intuitively because I can do the brain stuff and I don't want to do that. I want to follow it through the intuitive knowing. And I'll tell you what, Louise, what's happening with the people who are involved and people who are not involved, it's just incredible what is happening with these creatures showing up. And some of them are totally surprising. And so this synchronistic thing that happens is just remarkable. Now, my daughter is currently living in Mazatlan in Mexico, and she's just had 2 amazing creature stories. The first one was in the summer. She was completely on her own with her 2 dogs. The rest of the family had come back home. She was just there on her own, very quietly. She goes out one morning and there's a condor sitting on the fence.
Wow.
Condor is the 51st gene key city of awakening. The next morning, the condor is standing at the front door of a trailer wanting to come in for a cup of tea. May just standing there waiting. So then, after a few days, this condor now befriends my daughter's next door neighbor. And it's a woman who lives on her own with her dog. And Angela sent me these photographs of this condor with this woman who's now petting it. She's giving it a shower. And then she's going for a walk with her dog. And the condor is hopping behind them.
Oh, wow.
It's going for a walk with them. So this condor has adopted people. And now my grandson is now having an interaction with the condor. So it's quite remarkable. And then the other thing that happened just yesterday, and this is how these synchronicities happen. I was listening to a Cliff High talk.
Yeah.
And he was talking about this higher frequency psychic ability coming in. Then my daughter contacts me. So I stopped my listening to Cliff High. And she starts telling me she just had this experience with an opossum. Now, I have never used the word opossum in my life. I don't know what an opossum is, basically. And she said this was an amazing thing that she witnessed, where this opossum got run over by a car and it rolled itself around the wheel twice and then took off.
Oh, wow.
It didn't die.
Oh, wow.
And then she looked up opossum in the medicine card book.
Yeah.
And it actually says roll over. And what the opossums do to defend themselves, they roll into a ball and pretend to be dead.
Right.
I thought, wow, that's amazing. And I don't know what the opossum is in the dream arc, if it's in it.
Yeah.
So now I finish my conversation with my daughter and I come back on with Cliff High. And in the very first sentence after I put him back on, he said, because this psychic awareness is going to be affecting the brain structures, we are going to have a heightened sense of smell.
Right.
And you may even smell an opossum that's some distance away. I couldn't believe it. It's ridiculous, right? So this is what's happening. This wonderful, wonderful connect. And there are loads and loads of stories.
Yeah, yeah.
And I've got Maria's making a comment here about her bird flew into her balcony window. So yes, there's a message coming because the birds do bring messages, right? So there's a message. It would be nice for Maria to know what the actual bird was, because then we could look it up in the dream.
Well, I have when I walk the dogs, I've got crows and they will hop behind me. So to the point now where I take mealworms and as I'm walking the dogs, I'm feeding the crows as well. But they started just following me on dog walks and just hopping behind me. We don't get anything as extravagant as condors in the UK, unfortunately.
Well, you know, there is this mythology in North America that when the condor and the eagle fly together, we'll have peace on earth, right?
Absolutely.
Well, we've got the eagle here, she's got the condor there, so that's really, really neat. But now as you've mentioned the crow, this gives me the chance to now talk about the lunar eclipse.
Okay.
Because
cool.
the crow is the bird associated with the 28th gene key. Now my feeling is that this is weird. So Maria now, right? This is where it gets really neat. Maria has mentioned sparrow or blackbird. Both of those are in my web of life.
Oh.
And I've been having lots of sparrow interactions. It's really weird. So I'll be walking along and a whole group of sparrows will just land in the bush next to me.
Wow.
And just this week I had a sparrow, like one sparrow connecting with me. And it's the 37th gene key, which is all about family. And the blackbird is the 57th gene key, which is what we were talking about earlier, being in the womb space.
Yeah.
So there's another lovely synchronicity going on.
Yeah.
And she's got wasps and cats and robins showing up all the time. So Kid is saying that crows taught her how to clear energy. Okay, So now we're going to talk about the crow, because the crow is the animal totem of the 28th gene key.
Okay.
So now we're going to move into the lunar eclipse, because the lunar eclipse on the 28th of October is happening in the 28th gene key.
Right.
And the totem of the 28th gene key is the crow.
I love
and so
how it
why
goes.
is this important? So why is this important? Because I personally think what's leading up to that lunar eclipse is really, really significant. And the reason that I do is after we finish with the 32nd gene key, we move into the 50th gene key. And the 50th gene key is the gene key of corruption. It's the shadow that is what the global elite are trying to do in the world. So we've got this wonderful opportunity before we get into the lunar eclipse to bring that energy into the city is harmony.
Right.
So this is the harmony. And Richard talks about the year 2027, when we are going to come into rhythmic resonance. So everything will become a symphony of celestial music. What a beautiful image that is.
Yeah.
So the way that we deal with the corruption on the planet is through the gift of equilibrium. So we balance off the energies, and then the city is harmony. So working with music and sound frequency, crystal bowls, Tibetan bowls, sound frequency is what we want to do to bring ourselves into harmony. And then for the lunar eclipse, we've moved into the 28th gene key, the shadow of which is the deepest fear we have to face in our lives. Well, leading up to that, from what's going on in the world today, we all need to look into what is that deepest fear that I'm carrying. And it's often to do with mortality. It's often to do with death and dying. So it's often to do with someone in your life who's passed at a critical time in your life, or your own near-death experience, or your own fear of death, or even the ability to work with death. So some death doulas, hospice workers have the 28th gene key because they have the gift of working with that energy.
Yeah.
So that's going to be the energy of that, and it is crow medicine. And as Kid said, it's about clearing out this lower frequency energies to set us free, which is what that's leading into. So we want to see all this corruption on the planet transcended, dissolving away, transmuted through the crow energy to set us free.
Definitely. Definitely. I mean, I suppose I do have quite an affinity with crow medicine in the way that I work. It's always been about clearing, extracting the lower frequencies, transmuting the lower frequencies, rather than the sort of the light healers who bring the light in and the light does the work. I've always been the one that takes the dark out so that the light can come in, kind of thing. So
right,
so
exactly.
I have a deep affinity with crow medicine.
Yeah, so make sure you bring that in as we approach the lunar eclipse, working with that. That's great. Good. Then the other thing that I wanted to talk about, which is really, to be honest, touching my heart very deeply, is Oracle Girl, who I follow closely, has an immersion twice a year in April and October. So she's right in that immersion now. And she goes to a location on the planet where she feels some work needs to be done. And this time she's gone to the Himalayas.
Right.
And this is important because back in the 90s, she was in the Himalayas where she met a shaman woman who told her it was time to her to come out into the world and start doing her work publicly.
Yeah.
So it's like she's gone back full circle to when she started to this moment.
Yeah.
So, you know, our YouTube is called From Shambles to Shambala.
Yeah.
And Richard Rudd talks about the concept of termas. And termas are objects that we have left behind in the past when we reached a certain level of consciousness for us to find again in this lifetime, which opens the whole thing up to a new level.
Yeah.
So Richard believes that the gene key transmission is a terma. That has come back now because we are ready to receive it.
Yeah.
So we can open up into it and become part of it, which obviously I have done through the gene key process with him.
Yeah.
So just on Friday, Oracle Girl sent her latest transmission from the Himalayas, and in it, she talked about Shambala. It's a real place in the Himalayas, and there's a doorway into Shambala once you reach a certain level of consciousness to access it.
Wow.
And then she started talking about Paramsambhava and termas. And I'm thinking, this is tying it all together.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is what I now believe, Louise. This has only come to me in the last 2 days. I think we all have a terma inside us.
Yes.
Which is waiting for us to access, to take us into this next level of conscious awareness. Step through that doorway into Shambhala.
Yeah.
Which is what we're creating on the planet right now.
Yes.
And I'm just feeling this. I haven't gone there. I haven't got there yet, but I'm feeling that's what needs to come next.
Yeah.
So this is like this incredible opening. And I remember James Redfield, who wrote the Celestine Prophecy, wrote a book later called The Secret of Shambhala.
Right.
And in that book, he talked about you had to reach a certain level of consciousness to experience Shambhala.
Yeah.
And he did. But when he was there, he heard the Chinese military helicopters coming, and he dropped into fear, and Shambhala disappeared.
Yeah.
And that's the message that we need to take on now, that we mustn't let ourselves drop in conscious awareness.
Yeah.
We got to stay high, and then Shambhala can appear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like magic, like that mythical realm we're talking about.
Yeah. I know, I always do a talk when the summit comes. Hopefully my voice will be okay by Sunday, but I was asking Spirit what I was going to talk about, because it's always, divinely gifted. And again, it was on that similar theme that letting go of those things that stop us from being free and being our authentic selves. And one of the biggest things has been people's fear of death, seeing themselves as more of the human rather than the eternal soul aspect that they are. And that's that big thing. Yeah. If we hold that fear, then we are pulled down, or we can more easily be pulled down by global events, or even local events that we see that are limiting us, or that we feel may impact our lives, our ability to live. But if we step beyond that into the more eternal soul self-awareness, then we are able to hold that frequency of that level of consciousness, and remain in the Shambhala state, in that experience, in the waking world, regardless of what's going on around us.
So to add to that, one of the things that's become really evident in my work is these really gifted, spiritually aware women in particular, who have this lingering self-doubt about themselves, which comes from their emotional development as a child, 8 to 14, where almost certainly they were not fully recognized for who they were. And so again, I'd urge all of our listeners today to recognize any self-doubt they have about themselves and that self-worth, because it's really important to step beyond that. And the way you do that is through a total acceptance and a total forgiveness of all that's happened in your life where you were made to doubt yourself. And that sets you free. And it's actually, when we were talking about dragons earlier, for me, this is your inner dragon force, which really enables you to step up and to be your true, authentic self. No one can mess with me, but I'm going to demonstrate it elegantly out in the world.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it was the dragons that enabled me to get through my childhood for sure.
Well, there you go. Yeah. And they are coming back. They are coming back big time.
Yeah, yeah.
I just want to make this, before we get into any specific gene key questions, I just wanted to also mention this is Kerry Kay, who I feel is really good at explaining what's going on right now. And she did a recent transmission called The Timeline is Spitting You Out. And what she was talking about is this division that's taking place, the two paths, the path of the person who's awake and aware, and those who are stuck in the old world. And so what she's saying is these paths are diverging, they're getting further apart.
Mm.
So if you cross that timeline from where you're supposed to be to this one, you get attacked by someone.
Right.
Because you're not supposed to be there. So it's really interesting. It's happened to me a couple of times where you think, whoa, what just happened? And it's because you're in the wrong timeline. They don't want you in their timeline. You're a threat to their timeline.
Yeah.
She called them timeline police. They don't know they're doing it consciously, but they're blocking us from being in it. We don't want to be in it.
Yeah.
So again, if any of the listeners have that happen to them, just to realize it's actually a compliment because you're not in that timeline, you're in the other timeline. Get back in there.
Get back in your lane.
Exactly.
Well, that's good though. I mean, because a lot of people, they're concerned. They have concerns. They hear all these concepts of, the timeline splitting and things like this, and they fear being in the wrong timeline and not being able to get into the right timeline. So that, in a way, is something nice to know. It's like, okay, well, if you are veering off into the wrong timeline, then something will happen, as it always does, to kind of nudge you back into
That's
the
right.
timeline you're meant to be.
And what we mustn't do is try to rescue or convince someone in the other timeline, because you end up doing the splits. You've got one foot in both camps, and that's not fun. That's not healthy. So we've spent a lot of time trying to convince people in the past. Now we've got to let it go, and now we've just got to be the example, the model of holding to that highest frequency. Then they either will get it or they won't.
Yeah.
But we're not pulling them over. We're not dragging them over.
No.
We're leaving it up to them to decide, because everybody's having to make a choice at this time. That's what this is really all about. What is the choice I'm going to make for myself?
Absolutely.
And each person needs to do that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can't drive someone else's car. You've got to stay in your own car, in your own lane, and that's been a lot of the work that I've been doing with people recently. Is just letting go of taking responsibility for other people's journeys, other people's choices, regardless of who they may be in your lives. Everybody is on their own perfect journey and are making the perfect choices for them. It may not be the choice that you'd want them to make, but it's about just remaining in your lane and allowing other people to do their journeys for themselves, really. And
it's been really challenging for a lot of people this last 3.5 years with families where there's been a incredible split and there's no room for movement within the family, and it's really hard. Really hard.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not easy, but I mean, I suppose in a way you would say that about a lot of this spiritual journey. It's not been easy for us to be our authentic selves within the climate that we found around us, but equally it's difficult when you've gone to a certain point in your journey and you are living your authentic self, but your loved ones and your friends and everything is making a different choice. It then becomes equally difficult from the opposite perspective, kind of thing. But again, it's we're here. We have managed to navigate these very difficult, challenging experiences and energies, and it's for us to maintain our high vibration and be compassionate and loving and respectful and honoring everybody else's journey and their choices, as we would wish and hope everybody else honors ours. So, but it's not easy, and I think
it's really helpful to find your own soul tribe.
Absolutely.
Even if it's only one person, but if you can find a small group of people who totally get it, who are totally on side with
Yeah.
you. We have a monthly meeting of usually between 10 and 15 people where we're all completely aligned, and it's just
Mm.
wonderful. You know, one afternoon a month is all that's required to keep us right on top of things and work together as a team, but only from a distance most of the time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we are, you know, ready to come together at any moment if we need to. So if people can find their soul tribe, it's a wonderful thing.
Absolutely. And recognizing, because this is something else that came through and channeling when I was out the other day, your soul tribe changes as your vibration changes. And so it's not that you're,
Yep.
you know, you might feel, oh, I've met my soul tribe, and that's great. In that moment you have, but if your frequency increases and theirs doesn't, then your soul tribe will also change. So it's this allowance of flow, this constant allowance of being in flow and allowing things to shift with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
There's just a few questions coming up. One is a more kind of generalized one, not around the personal gene keys. And that is, do you know of any books or any teachings that shows the alignment of the gene keys with astrology, like in the way that you do? Because you blend the two together. But do you know
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
any books or any texts or anything that does the same?
No, I'll tell you what I do know though, and that is every month there's a woman and a man called Shatan and Carola. She's an astrologer and he's a human design person. So he's
Okay.
not a gene key person. But every month on a Saturday morning, they do a 1 hour assessment of the month coming up, where she talks about the astrology and he talks about human design. But
Okay.
in the human design, he's actually talking about the gates, which are the same thing as the gene key
Right.
spheres. So I listen to that every month to get an insight into what's coming up astrologically and connected to me for the gene keys, not human design. But he's talking about human design, but the two are closely connected. I'm
Okay.
not aware of any particular book,
Mm.
but that to me, for that connection, is all I need anyway for the month to see what's coming.
Okay, great. Excellent. They say, are they on YouTube?
So Joy's asked a question about the 63.4 in both her pearl and her culture. So can we deal with that?
Yeah.
So the fact that you've got the same gene key in the pearl and the culture, this is the position of Jupiter. So it suggests that Jupiter must have gone retrograde during the time that you were being born. And the 63.4 in your culture, this means that we've just been talking about both of the things actually. The fourth line culture is the person who's a networker. So this is the person that will bring the soul tribe together so long as the heart is open.
Right.
So Joy needs to be aware of whether her heart is open and warm and loving and kind, or if it feels the need to protect because of any betrayal that she's experienced or any
Right.
rejection. If her heart is open, then the fourth line will bring in those people for her to work with. And the
Okay.
fourth line in the pearl is the word charity. So it means that she gets her greatest contentment in life when she's supporting those people less fortunate than herself.
Right.
And the 63rd gene key is the shadow of self-doubt. So the 63rd gene key, because of the doubt, sends us on a seeking the truth, going on a journey of seeking the truth through life. And then you reach a point where you can't go any further because the logical sequential approach cannot solve life.
Mm.
Nothing can solve life. So we have to surrender to the mystery in awe and wonder of life.
Mm.
So that's what she needs to do. Let it go. Let throw the books away and just follow spirit, follow the guidance that comes through.
Right. We've got two people that have got 28. So Jerry has got 28.2 in life's work and says that they're turning 80. just before the eclipse coming up. So what is their opportunity?
Okay, well, the line 2 is dancing through life with ease and grace.
No, lovely.
So there shouldn't be any struggle. There shouldn't be a struggle. And the 28th Jinki is facing that deepest fear. This is the Jinki of Halloween. So if you imagine all the ghosties and ghoulies coming out on Halloween and put them into one demonic being, that's the deepest fear you've got to face.
Right.
But because it's a Scorpio Jinki, once you've cleared that fear, it leads into this wonderful, magical, mystical journey we've been talking about today. Because it comes from the underworld. Scorpio is about the underworld. So these beautiful opportunities just start showing up, coming through the underworld out into life. So the synchronicities start really showing up.
Yeah, because Maria says the EQ, their EQ is 28.1. So so that's just a
So
difference in the line.
Right. So the 28.1 in the EQ, this is the line 1 EQ, usually means that that person has had something happen in their life which has taken away their level of confidence. And Maria is saying that as a child, she didn't feel supported. So whatever happened during this age 8 to 14, she didn't feel supported. So there would have been incidents that happened where she lost some confidence in herself.
Yeah.
So this is now recognizing that and looking back into that time in her life, 8 to 14, to clear anything. And as you said earlier, it's the going into the shadow, the fear of showing up. So, for example, what would she have believed as that 8 to 14-year-old if she really showed up? What could go wrong for her? So that she can clear that so it doesn't need to happen in the future.
Just got a question about the dream arc. And I'm not sure if it works like this, but Mete is asking, what is the dream arc animal for Gene Key 8? Their pearl is Gene Key 8.1.
Okay, I don't have my dream arc list here, but I can go and get it. I think I can.
Yeah, if anybody else has any questions about either your individual profile or or anything around the topics that we've been asking, please feel free to put them in the question and answer box or the chat box.
Okay, so the eighth the eighth animal is the mole.
Right.
So the eighth gene key is this gene key where we have been expected to conform to a certain way of being. So this is about, because it's in the pearl, it's about breaking out of any restrictions and just becoming your true, unique self. And the city word is exquisiteness. It's a beautiful word.
Lovely.
Where you are just being true to you without any fear of any rejection if you truly behaved as you really are, your true, unique self. And the eighth city is the hummingbird. So the hummingbird tasting the sweet nectar of life is what she will do when she steps into her exquisiteness.
Amazing. Maria's put that she's got 57 in vocation. She's currently focusing at present to be connected more with the heart and getting out of the mind. She's not put what line. Maria, if you know what line your 57 is in vocation, it will be 57 point something. That would be great.
So I missed some of that. Was that 57, did you say?
57 in vocation for Maria, but she's not put what line. Oh, 57.2 in vocation.
Right. So the vocation 57.2, the line 2 vocation is the core wound. That's the ancestral lineage wounding that becomes your vocation in your life. And the line 2 wound is, and it is the blackbird, the line 2 wound is denial. So it means the family will be denying the truth of who they really are.
Right.
And this 57th gene key is this clouded issue because of the feminine womb space principle. So there's a deep potential healing taking place there.
Mm.
And the hummingbird just showed up at Valerie's window just to demonstrate this synchronicity. And the blackbird is the songbird of the 57th gene key.
Oh,
So listening to blackbird sounds would really support that.
Mm.
So there was another question that came up earlier that I saw about how do you, I can't see it anymore.
How do you get the gene key profile? To get the gene key profile on the email that went out with the details of today's Peter's talk, there was a link underneath on the email, but also I mentioned it in the introduction. I will find that and I will put it in the chat. I will try to do that. In the meantime, Anne says, where can we find more about the dream arc?
So just go online to Richard's website, genekeys.com, and you'll see Dream Arc. It's right on the front page because he's now on this online retreat. And the question about the bee, I know about the bee because it is the 44th gene key, which is my life's work. So the bee is the creature of the shadow of interference in the 44th gene key.
Somebody else put a question.
Do I believe in past lives? That's a really, really good and deep question. And I do believe in past lives, but probably not in a traditional way. I feel as if we have a connection to certain lineages that we may have been involved in the past. So for me, it definitely feels like a Knights Templar connection. But I think there's a risk in associating ourselves with well-known people. So there are thousands of Mary Magdalenes and Queen Elizabeths on the planet. And what it means is that you've actually connected into that particular frequency. So it means that there is a lineage of Mary Magdalene energy that you are connected with. So whether you were her or not doesn't really matter. It just means you're carrying that vibration of that sacred feminine. And that's true, I think, for all of that. But so I sort of believe in it, but I think it's a risk to get stuck in that egoically.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Shaitan and Corolla, the spelling actually is a C at the front. So it's CH. And you'd have to just go online and Google to find them. I don't know their website off the top of my head. And the animal of the 35 is the yak.
Oh.
And the 35 bird is the Quetzal. So this is the mythical bird of Quetzalcoatl, the South American tradition of the serpent transforming into the eagle.
Bethany says her life work is 38.5, evolution 39.5, radiance 57.1, and purpose 51.1. Is there a cohesive theme here around being a warrior or something else? It might be a bit much to go into every single one of those.
So I didn't get them all actually. So what were they? 38?
Life's work is 38.5. Evolution 39.5, radiance 57.1, and purpose 51.1.
Yeah. So what this means, the 5-1 connection is you are a natural leader in the 5, but you also need time alone to work this all out. So this is finding the balance between you in the outer world as a leader and you in your inner world having time alone. The 38 and 39 is a very tricky combination because the leadership that you have in the 39 tends to lead to you provoking people. So you may have had people attacking you for no obvious reason, and you are a warrior, so you may have reacted defensively back. So almost certainly there will have been times in your life where you've had that take place. And what you're really wanting to do is to poke people awake. Mm. So now you've got to be really careful who you choose to poke.
I'm just aware of the time. So we've been going for an hour and 15 minutes. Just before we take the last one, I just want to get an opportunity to share Peter's special offer that he's generously providing, which is actually a discounted session with him. It's a one-on-one session, and it's all around your personal chart. So, I mean, it's impossible for us to cover all of everybody's charts, and as you can see, Peter just has it in his head. He's able to go into the depths of the information about each individual gene key. And what I've experienced within these sessions with Peter is that I've looked at gene keys for many years now, and I can read and absorb the information, but it doesn't stick, it doesn't go in. But what I find with Peter's sessions is he just is able to share it in such a way that I can just easily get to that information that I need at that time, knowing that whenever I have a session with Peter, I'm going to get exactly what I need in that moment. So if I've gone with a specific question, or if I've gone to look at a specific part of my profile, he's able to really go into my specific journey and relate it to what I've been experiencing in this lifetime. So I would highly recommend having a session with Peter. Is there anything else that you want to share about a one-to-one session, Peter?
Well, I think the most important thing is it's not a bunch of numbers on a piece of paper. No. It's your genetic makeup. It's who you really are. And that's why it's so profoundly amazing how accurate it is, because it's who you are. Mm. So I don't know the details of what the issues are for you, but I can see through your particular profile where those things have hindered you in the past and where you can really now step into your full power. So it's this beautiful empowerment, because you're going to do the work. I'm not. I'm just going to point out things that you need to be involved in to reach that place. But to me, it's the safest, most profound modality that I've ever come across. Mm-hmm. And it is a deeply profound energetic transmission coming from source. And so that's why I do it.
Mm. And it's well.
I noticed Maria has put in.
Sorry.
I'm just noticing Maria has put in the box there the actual website for evolutionaryhumandesign.com for Shaitan and Corolla. Thanks, Maria.
All right, brilliant. But it's well worth checking out the special offer, which you can find on the free gifts page, or on the special offer tab underneath Peter's picture on the upcoming calls page, or the replay page on the Mundane-to-magicalliving.com website. So we'll just go through one more person's gene key, and then we'll bring this conversation to a close. So Joan is saying in her attraction there's 4.1. She recalls forgiveness and intolerance, but still doesn't know why she struggles with these. What's going on? Is she just being stubborn?
Well, that's part of the intolerance, right? The intolerance is you have some uncomfortable feeling inside yourself, and you have this wonderful logical explanation as why it's someone else's fault. So it's about taking full responsibility for our own discomfort in the intolerance. And then the forgiveness is forgiving everything that's happened in our lives, because this has all been a setup for our success now. So we look at it in this way. We say, right now, I'm setting myself up for success so long as I can forgive everything. And those forgivenesses for me require the forgiveness of anyone who's hurt you, any event that's hurt you, anything you think you've done to hurt others, and most importantly, whatever you think you've done to hurt yourself. Mm-hmm. And the line 1 is typically in the attraction sphere, the people you pull into your life to support you in your journey. And the line 1 seeks some safety and security. So you may have been seeking safety and security outside yourself. And now it's finding that safety and security inside yourself by forgiving yourself for everything that's happened in your life. And then you can set yourself free.
And that actually beautifully links in with what you were talking about right at the beginning of the talk. You know, this opportunity for us to kind of set ourselves free so that we can create this mystical future. And something that came up in a client session with me just last week was our egoic mind cannot picture that which is possible, because all it's basing everything on is what it's experienced and what it's known, or what it's been taught is possible. So as we try, as we aim to step into this mystical future, it's kind of letting go of that, freeing yourself from all of the entrapment of that, because the egoic mind can't create the mystical future that's coming, because it doesn't know it. It's not got any frame of reference for it. So yeah, using the forgiveness or whatever tools we have to hand to free ourselves from all of the limitations enables us to step into this magical world, which I personally can't wait for.
Yeah. Well, spot on, Louise. That's exactly correct. We mustn't imprint in the future the past, because it's going to be totally different. You're absolutely right. And well done at surviving this with your voice. I hope you can go and give it a nice rest now and have a nice cup of something.
I will. I've got ginger and lemon tea. I'm ready so that I can have that and soothe my throat for tomorrow's live call. So thank you again, everybody, for joining us live, and to those who are watching in the replay, again, thank you for your energy, because it's all within the collective portal that is the Mundane to Magical Summit. Thank you again, Peter, for joining us and kicking off season 10. I can't believe it, we're on season 10. What you bring each time is just such a wonderful, rich amalgamation of all of the different energies that we're experiencing on a collective, on a personal level, and it's always so rich. So thank you so much, and for introducing the dream arc as well.
My absolute pleasure, and this has been a catalyst for the beginning of your new series, so I'm delighted to be the first person to bring in this transmission. Absolutely,
and I'm absolutely blessed that you were available to do that for us this season too. Tomorrow we have another, well, this whole season is live calls, so I hope my voice does last out for the 7 days. But tomorrow we have the wonderful Nora Walks in Spirit joining us again. Again, another very, very high vibrational transmission, ending with an activation. So I do hope you can all join us for that. But for now, thank you, everybody. It's a true honor and a blessing to host these seasons, and I hope you enjoy them as much as I do. But for now, much love, take care, and I shall see you all again.
Blessings, everybody. Bye-bye now.
Bye.